Hey fellow campers and expedition camper builders, thank you for coming back to my channel and watching the build out of my do-it-yourself Total Composites camper box and expedition vehicle on this EarthCruiser Mitsubishi Fuso 4-wheel drive. I am making some adjustments to the rear wall here, as that is the last thing to get done to finish building out this camper and closing it in so I can move forward, as you saw in my previous video and talked about in my previous video, moving on with building out the cabinets and thus the electrical and water systems, which I'm so excited to get started on. So in this build video, I got to make a few adjustments to accommodate the rear wall getting added on here after the upper rear wall has been built. So I'm going to go through a little bit of what has to be done here and just show you a little bit about that and some of just the slight trimming on the extrusions and the rear wall. Yep, that is going to work. Yeah, that's good. What I'm doing here is test fitting all the extrusions and the wall panels for this lower rear wall, something I talked about in the previous build videos. Okay, I got to make one more little cut. Yeah, in those previous build videos and building out this Total Composites box, you'll see that we actually spent several days test fitting all of the extrusions and wall panels. We did have to make a couple tiny little adjustments or trims on the panels or extrusions where they come together in the corners, just to make sure we had good tight fits the way we liked them, and sometimes we're also where they overlap a little bit. As what Total Composites does, they provide you really a square cut at the end, but sometimes you can see here what I'm doing is making a notch cut so that the two extrusions can really fit really tightly together and get a much stronger fit. And so there's a lot of little adjustments sometimes to be made. This is dusty work. You can see there's snow on the ground outside, so it is cold even though it's a nice sunny day. So we've got some, fortunately, very good weather to come and make these adjustments. And with the upper rear wall here, I had to make just a slight trim to make sure that the extrusions could get onto this upper rear wall section and also onto the floor of the camper, and push all those on in a kind of complicated maneuver with the extrusions and the panel, the wall panels, and making up some sort of like a Z configuration. And that has to go on in both directions, pulling and pushing at the same time. And there's a little bit of a challenge here too, in that also the floor is a little bit bowed, so that adds a little bit of friction. So we're working through that. So these little tiny adjustments, just trimming off a tiny little bit of edge on each side of this main panel. And that's not quite. And also pushing out these steel bars that are in the lower rear wall here. These are structural supports that I can attach things to, but I just tap them out ever so slightly, a couple of inches, to go ahead and just trim off that, call it 1/4 inch or so, that I'm trimming off the edge of these panels, so I'm not cutting through those steel bars with my fiberglass blade. And then going ahead and make a nice clean cut, as you can see here, so we can have everything really tie up really nicely together when we build it. And then simply tapping these bars back in and we're good to go. All right, so right now what I'm doing is going ahead and I'm putting tape on all of the different edges around the extrusions and also on the camper walls to make sure that the sealant adhesive doesn't really push out onto these walls, and it makes it for cleanup a lot easier. As it's drying, we can go ahead and just take our fingers and or a caulk tool, smooth it out, and then just peel off this tape, and that'll leave a nice clean caulk edge, which is great, and make sure that we have a good edge here. It's going to be a little messy because of the way we're going to have to attach on this rear wall here section, which should have been done first, and we knew that. It was a decision we made so we could get the upper rear wall done when I had more help, more manpower, because it's big and heavy, and also could keep this open until I got the entry door cut in, and I had to wait to get the entry door cut in based on some other things. So I left the rear wall open, figured out a plan as to how to install that time to make sure it was going to work. That plan's working, but we had to make some little adjustments, as you'll see, and so, or have seen in the video. So right now I'm just masking it all out so we can get all ready. I've already taken rubbing alcohol and paper towels, and I'm just starting to apply all the masking tape where I can get to it right now, and I'm going to move the ladder around, just make sure I've got all the different edges on the outside of the camper here covered in masking tape up to the edges. And then I'm going to do the inside of the camper walls as well, where we're also going to have sealant adhesive. Again, just make sure it's good, clean caulk line, there's not mess. We are going to make a little bit of mess. It's inevitable today as we're gluing this up because of the way we got to glue it up and the way we got to grab everything. But we're going to do our best, and we got some experience doing this, so just want to make sure it's as clean as possible. This is kind of what you have to do to get all prepped up and ready. And this is what the rear wall looks like, all test fitted together without adhesive sealant and the masking tape going around to protect the non-glued areas, and also our tick marks, as you can see here, which those tick marks mark out exactly where these wall panels and extrusions should all go together to make sure they all fit together as intended and planned, and as we also fit together through our test fitting. So this allows us to make sure everything goes together. And then I also went ahead on the interior, applied painter's tape on the interior as well to make sure that all those interior edges are not going to have glue or adhesive sealant push out onto them. So that way they're all ready for the glue on the day that we glue it up, which is coming up in the next video. So thank you so much for watching and subscribing, and there's so much more to come. So thank you for attending and hope you enjoyed this. More to come.
Yes.